Thank you so much for joining us today. As you know, we're going to be doing a sci-fi sound music project using the sampler in GarageBand. And so I'm Erika Moser. As Eoin had mentioned, I am on the East Coast, right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where I am an elementary music teacher, as well as a tech integration specialist, and an ADE from the class of 2019. Eoin?
And I'm Eoin Hughes. I'm a music and geography teacher and a digital learning coordinator in a one-to-one iPad school in Dublin, in Ireland. You're all very welcome joining us today. So you're going to need a few things with you today as we're doing this. Hopefully you have your iPad separate for all the fun music making activities. But what you're also going to need is, we're actually going to send you off now in a minute on a bit of a scavenger hunt for about a minute around your house to grab a couple of items. Now, before you go running, hang on for a second. We're just going to give you a bit of advice. You're going to need things that you're able to bang and hit, and they're going to act as drums, but you might also need something that can make a pitch, a tone. Now, you'll see us a bit later on use a sample of a metal coffee cup, and when I hit it, it makes a nice ding. So if you have anything that makes a nice ding, that would be a good idea. Something like a metal kind of travel coffee cup or something like that. A glass in a pinch works okay, but we're going to give you a minute to go on that scavenger hunt, grab a couple of things wherever you are, and go running around, and a minute to do that, and we'll see you back in 1 minute.
All right, okay. So hopefully you were able to find some super fun objects in your house that we're going to get started with. So as we mentioned, today's activity is about how you can create samples of the objects that you found, and then create a super cool musical track using the sampler in GarageBand. So of course, we have kind of created an example for you to listen to just kind of get a sense of what you can do. I promise this is completely designed for the non-musician. So trust me, within the end of the hour, you will be able to create something exactly like this. All right, so that is the basic idea of the project that we want you to create today. Now, we have these tutorials set up that you can go along step by step with us, especially if you join from a second device. And if not, what we're going to do is, after we go through a couple of steps, we're going to give you some time to kind of catch up and build that project. So however you prefer to learn, we're going to get started. So the first thing, obviously, that I'm going to need you to do is to find GarageBand on your iPad or iPhone and go ahead and open that up. Now, if you just press and hold that icon, you will see a menu that pops up. And from there, I want you to tap that first option that says Create New Track Song. Now, once you do that, that is going to open up our instrument sound browser. And normally when you would start a project, especially as music teachers, we would have you start with a percussion track. But because we're not really using percussion in this project, and we're going to rely on a bass as our kind of percussion track, I'm going to have you swipe through that menu until you find the bass. Once you locate that bass, it's about 5 swipes to the right or 6 swipes to the left. I want you to tap on that icon in the bottom left that says Smart Bass. So here you have your first instrument interface, and you can see it's like a straightforward bass. It looks exactly like the bass. And what I want you to do with this is we're going to just kind of get our projects set up. So you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner, there's a gear icon. If you could tap on that, that's going to bring up the option of how we can adjust the tempo. So this is going to default to 110, but we're going to drop it down to 80 so it's not too fast for you. So go ahead and tap that button. You'll notice the 110 has an arrow going up or the arrow going down. Just press and hold or tap that down arrow until you get yourself to 80. All right, once you have that tempo set, I have a couple of other things that I want you to do. So go ahead and tap that settings button one more time. Because the next thing that we want to do is we want to set the key for this project. So tap on that key signature. And this is going to pull up the option of major and minor, as well as a bunch of the key names. So tap on A. And then I want you to tap on minor as well. Go ahead, just tap that settings gear one more time. And that'll close out the menu. And your project's all set. So the last thing I want you to do is tap on that metronome. I think Eoin tapped through for me. Tap on the metronome, you'll notice it's blue. Tap on it one more time to turn it off. And that's going to get rid of the click that would happen as you're recording your project. So we're going to set a timer and give you 2 minutes to kind of go through and set that project up. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we can take you back through those steps. Again, hopefully you were kind of like working along with us. The key signature, Ken, if you just tap that settings gear and then tap on key signature, we're going to put you in A minor for today. You're in the drums. So if you're in the drums, what I want you to do is in your interface, do you see a button in the control bar in the top left that looks like 3 squares? If you tap on that 3 squares, that's going to bring you back to the instrument browser, and you can swipe through to find the bass. Okay, good. Glad you found it.
Okay, we're just coming up on time on this section now, everyone. So hopefully we've been able to get our bass track chosen and then get those settings done for key signature, tempo, and then turn off that pesky metronome. And we'll let our music lead our rhythm for us as we go through the rest.
All right, so you see that we're back in the bass interface. So you notice we had that really cool kind of electric sounding bass working for our project. So what I want you to do here is if you tap the instrument icon on the left, this is going to pull up a lot of different bass options that you can choose from. And the 2 that we think work really well for this planet are the project, the exoplanet and the light project. We actually chose light cycle. So go ahead and tap on that one. And you'll notice your interface is completely different here. So how did we get that super cool arpeggiated sound? We're going to talk about the autoplay patterns. So do you notice the dial on the interface here? and it has 4 different options that you can swipe through. What I want you to do is turn that dial to number 3. And you'll see here, the interface has changed one more time. And what you have are chord strips. If you remember, we had you set this project in A minor. So for this bass pattern, we actually only want to use the A minor chord strip. Now, what's super cool about these autoplay patterns is even though you're set on 3, you can get all different types of sounds based on how you play it. So if you tap with just one finger, it sounds like this. Maybe. So that has this great sound, and that was just with using one finger, one tap. You can also tap that same chord strip using 2 fingers. It's going to slightly alter the pattern to make it sound like this. And your final option, and this is the option that we went with for our project, is the 3-finger tap. So let's just hear what that sounds like. So it definitely has that familiar sound. You can hear what we're going for here. So what we want you to do is we're going to give you a couple of minutes again to explore both of those basses, whether you choose to use that light cycle or exoplanet. I'm going to encourage you to use autoplay pattern 3, but it's entirely up to you to choose what you want to do. And again, you might want to use 1 finger, 2 fingers, or 3 fingers, but go ahead. Once you've decided what you like, we want you to record this. And I think Eoin already started this video for me. I forgot. So you'll notice that red button at the top. You're going to go ahead and tap that. It's going to give you a count to 4. You're going to tap, and it's going to record. You want to make sure to let the pattern play all the way through that ruler so you get to the end. And you have your bass track recorded. So we're going to set a timer. Again, feel free to drop your questions in the chat or come off mute if there was a step that you didn't quite understand. So Elaine, when you hit record, we're going to have this record for that entire section. So it's going to record straight across that ruler at the top for 8 measures.
And remember, everyone, as you're recording, if you feel you haven't quite got it right or you made a mistake, you can hit stop, that back to beginning button, and then just to the left of that, you got your undo if you feel you need to go again. You record it as many times as you need to and you get it right. Because it's only one A minor, we should be okay on this, but that tip might help a little bit later on as well. Okay, so we're just about 30 seconds, 25 seconds or so left in this one, and then we'll be ready to move on. So hopefully we've all got our bass track recorded now, and something, a good foundation to build on for adding our samples and our other tracks.
And even though we went really quick, hopefully you see how easy it is to use those touch instruments, turn on an autoplay pattern, and how you can really create something that sounds, like you're the professional musician, even if you don't know how to play the bass. So I think now we're going to turn it over to Eoin, and he's going to show us how to create our first sample.
Yeah, so here we go with sample one. All those things that we went looking for around our house at the beginning, that we're going to try and use some of those to make some sounds. But what we need to do first of all is to create a new track. So we've created our bass track. What we need to do then is up in the top left of your screen, if you tap on the instrument browser, which Erika mentioned earlier, it has 3 squares. And so if you tap on that, that's going to bring you into the sound browser and where you see all the various instruments. And you're going to need to swipe through this until you find the keyboard. So you can either go to the right or to the left with this. I'm swiping to the right. You get a slightly shorter route. And then we get to the keyboard then. Then we don't just tap immediately on the keyboard. What we want to choose is the sampler. Now, even some people who've been able to try GarageBand before probably haven't gone into that option. And then you notice when we go in here, we get another new interface. We've got a piano keyboard down there and these very, very interesting kind of blue interface above that and a very enticing big red button. So we're just going to give you a minute to create that new track. So tap that instrument browser button and then to swipe through the browser until you find the keyboard, tap on sampler, and so you're ready to go with that sampler in front of you. Okay, so hopefully we've been able to do that, and Erika is going to talk us through now the interface. So it's just not as scary looking. There's only a few buttons we need. So Erika is going to talk us through the interface for the sampler.
So yeah, there's just a couple of things that we want to point out to you. As Eoin had already mentioned, that big red button, when you are ready to record your sample, that is the one that you're going to press. It's nice and big and obvious, so pretty easy to find. The next button or, option that I want to point out is the scale button. And we're going to be using that a lot in this project. When we originally set up the project, we asked you to put it in A minor. And this scale button is going to allow us to kind of change what those keys look like so that you are only going to be using notes that appear in A minor. So no matter what you play, it sounds good. The next button that we just kind of want to point out, because we'll also be using that today, is the arpeggiator. And this is just one of the coolest things that is available to you when you're using a keyboard instrument. And what that's going to allow you to do is when you play multiple chords, or sorry, multiple notes at a time, it's going to let each note individually play in an arpeggiated pattern just to sound super cool. The last button that I just want to talk about, or second to last, is our chord strip button. And when we tap on that, that's going to change what the view looks like. Instead of seeing a piano keyboard, you're going to see those strips that you would see in the bass. And the other one that we're going to use a lot today, this is our octaves. This is going to allow us to make a sound be higher or lower. So if the pitch, if the instrument, whatever you sample doesn't quite make the sound that you want, you'll be able to kind of change it there.
So here we go. We're ready to record our first sample. So the first thing we want to do is going to be what we're referring to as our melodic sample. Whatever you found that makes a pitch when you hit it. So something like a metal coffee cup is ideal for this. And very, very simply, all you'll need to do will be to hit that red record button, pick up whatever you're doing, hold it on the left-hand side of your iPad. That's where the mic is, where the camera end is, where the selfie camera is, just not the home button end. And then we just hit it. Hit that record button, pick it up, hit our item, then watch the iPad screen. let it fade out a little bit, and then hit that red record button again. And then we've got our first sample made. So it's very important. It's something that makes that nice loud thing. We've got an actual musical pitch going on with that. So we're going to give you 1 minute to sample an item there. So something like that metal coffee cup is ideal if you have anything like that. So we'll see you in a minute. Okay, so hopefully you've had time there to get your sample done, what you'll use for your melodic sample, whether it be a metal coffee mug or something similar. So what we're going to look at next then is we're actually going to edit and trim our sample a little bit. Now, similar to if you've ever edited any video in iMovie or even just from the Photos app, there you can get these handles which will help you to do it. The GarageBand is really good in that it won't actually start recording a sample until you make a noise, even if you've hit that record button. So that's what happened in my example. It didn't pick up any sound. So all I need to do is the sample on the handle on the right, I'm just going to trim that in a little bit so I just don't get all of that ambient kind of hissy white noise in the background. And that's all really I need to do. If your house is a little bit noisier, you might need to do it on the left-hand side as well. And then we have a nicely trimmed sample then after that ready to use. So then Erika pointed out this button a little bit earlier. We're going to go to the scale button. So we're going to tap on scale, and then we're going to select minor. And the beauty of this then is when we tap scale and then minor, it changes our piano keyboard, and then we're only now seeing the notes of the A minor scale. And there are no wrong notes in here in terms of what we're going to do on this project. So it's like having like colors that you know are going to work really, really well together in an art project. Now, obviously, this is going to be our highest pitch melody, our highest pitch part, our melody right up the top, and where our bass was down really low. So you might need to just tap around on the keyboard and make sure whatever you've sampled does sound relatively high pitched. Now, not so only dogs can hear it. We need to be able to hear it too. But you might need to, on the left-hand side where you can change the octave, you might find that you need to go to +1 or to +2. You can decide yourself what's the best option to go with there. After that, then, you can go for it with this melody. If you're feeling confident, you can make up something that goes along with that bass line and do what you like. But we're going to try and suggest one that we know will work, and we'll also give you some ways to customize it and do your own thing with it. So we're suggesting to focus mainly on the A note. You'll see it labeled. It'll be in a darker gray than the rest of the keyboard. And what we're going to suggest is on every beat, music will often work in patterns of 4. So for our first 3 beats, we're going to hit A, 3 times in a row. Do, 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 like that. And then after we've hit A, we're going to give you free choice on that 4th note. And you'll be surprised how well this will work. Any other note will sound great with this. And what you can do is you can do different things every time. So you can go A, and then you choose any other note that you see on that scale. Let's have a little bit of a listen to what that might sound like. I'm just going to press play, and it starts again. A, pick a note. A, pick a note, and so on. So you see, I kept going until that ruler went all the way across it at A, and any other note. And I kept changing that to create a nice kind of melodic pattern, but nice and easy to follow. So we're going to give you a little bit of time to practice this before we record. We're going to give you 2 minutes. You can do that A, and then you get a free choice, or you can come up with something completely different, but we'll see you back in 2 minutes after you experiment with that. So we might wrap up the practice on this a little bit early, just so we can keep moving. Just to answer Elaine's question before, as we're doing that, Elaine, it won't. The older sample will still be there, but if you record a new sample, that's the one then that is mapped to the keyboard, and then you can start hitting that record button up the top in a minute as we get to record it. So let's keep going, and then we'll move on to that. So as we record, remember we wanted that ruler up the top, which we saw moving along as we recorded. I'll jump back very quickly on the trimming there, Doug. So if you see, when you'll see these handles, and all you do, like if you were editing an iMovie or anything like that, you just drag that back to the left. Don't cut it off too much. Have a look at it, and when you see it kind of moving down, and we'll follow that tail, and then off you go. So we've worked through our practice time. So we're going to record now, and we want to fill that ruler. So we're going to keep going with our pattern A, and whatever other note we want. So let's have a look at this now. So it's the record button at the top, the smaller red button, we're going to hit that. So we're going to tap that, we're going to get a count into 4, and then we start playing our pattern all the way across. And then if you need to, you can hit back to the beginning, or you can hit that undo button and go again if you're not happy with your first attempt. So now it's your time to then go and record that. And remember, there are no wrong notes here. We would say focus on that A, and it will work really well to go A, and then another note each time. Okay, and we should be just rounding out on that time there. So we're going to keep moving, I think, and we're going to go on to our second sample now, okay? We're actually going to use the same, we're going to use the same item for this one, but we're going to do something a little bit different with it, okay? So what we'll need to do is we finish that track. We want to tap on that instrument browser button again. So those, the second from the top left, the 3 squares. We're going to tap on that. It should open in the sound browser then on keyboard, and then we want to tap on our sampler again. So we're going to create this is going to create a new sampler track for us, and we can go again and record that. And then we're going to repeat the same process as before. We're going to go straight into hitting that red record button, picking up our item on the left-hand side of our iPad, if you have it positioned like that, and then let it record, let it ring out a little, and then tap the red button again to stop. We're just going to give you, maybe not quite the full minute. We probably don't think you need a full minute for this, but just to record your sample again. It's very important we do record the sample again, though. So tap that instrument browser, choose sampler again. That's creating a new sampler track, and then record that sample again. Okay, so hopefully we've all got our second sample done now. Now we're going to do our trimming again here. So we're going to pull it in from the left like we did in the last time, just so when you see that kind of tail of that sample coming down, just trim it into about there. And then this time we're actually going to pull in the sample from the left just a little bit, just so we don't get that very bell-like sound at the beginning. Just going to give us a very different kind of sound, a more synth-like sound for our next one. So we're going to pull in both of them a little bit, and it'll create a lovely sound for what we're going to do next. So we might actually just get you to do that for a couple of seconds before we move into our next section. We're maybe just going to skip the minute here, okay? So hopefully then we've trimmed in that sample, brought it in on the right, and on the left, just again, Pam, if you just drag in those handles that you see below the sample, think about how when you're editing video, they're yellow in iMovie or in the Photos app, you can see them in blue there, and just drag them in a little bit. Remember, anything, always think about it on an iPad screen as if they're physical things that you can pick up and move. So once we've done that, we want to tap on our scale button again, like we did before, and we're going to select minor again. And then we see that familiar screen where the piano has gone away and we just get these white notes and a couple of gray notes. Now, really exciting one. We're now going to show you the magic of the arpeggiator to create these really, really cool patterns while we play a few notes at once. So tap on that arpeggiator icon. It's like a little triangle of squares building up. And then you'll see an option to toggle to turn it on so it will run. So just tap that, and we're going to leave the default sounds. We're going to leave everything else the same. So just tap anywhere else on the screen to move on from that. Now, you can just use one note, but it will sound really cool if you do 2 or maybe even 3 notes on that you see in front of you in that scale view. So we're suggesting to use A and then any other 2 notes. Now you can copy ours exactly. We're using 4 from that A, we're using A and then 4 to the right and 5 to the right, but A and any other 2 notes. And then you play these at the same time. So you might use the A with your left hand, and then with your right hand, you might do 2 other notes. We'll put these down all at the same time on the keyboard and then listen for the cool kind of pattern that's created automatically for you. So really, really make you feel like you're making music at this point. Now, very importantly, we don't want this to be clashing too much with our melody. So it will be different on everyone's iPad, depending on what you've sampled. GarageBand tries to manage this a little bit for us. But if it feels like it's getting in the way of your other sample, just bring the octave down, maybe to 0, -1. It certainly shouldn't be as high. As long as it's not as high sounding as your melody, you'll be okay. So remember, we've trimmed it down. And we want you to maybe just, hopefully you've been practicing it as we go along there. So we might skip the practice time this time. So it's just, you turn on the arpeggiator, hold down a couple of notes, and then you're ready to go. So what we might do is just skip straight to the recording. So again, it's the record button, but the smaller record button up beside the play button at the top of our screen. Now, as a top tip here, when we hit record, we start getting in that count of 4. Hold down the 3 notes you want to play as the count in is coming in, and just keep holding them until that ruler moves all the way across and then turns from red to green. So let's watch as we go. So we're going to tap that record button. And then as it starts counting us in, I'm going to hold down. If you watch the screen carefully, you'll see me do it. I'm going to hold my notes down, keep holding them. And then once it turns green, we can hit stop then at that point. Again, if you need to go again, you can hit the go to beginning button, you can hit undo, and you can go again, but now is your time to record. We might shorten the time just a little bit, but it only takes about 30 seconds to record all the way across. We'll see in a minute or so. Okay, hopefully that should be about enough time. I don't think we quite need the full 2 minutes there. I think that should be enough time and everyone's got that recorded. So we're going to move on now onto sample 3, and I'll pass it back to Erika then for this one.
All right, we know we're going super fast. So not only will this recording be available to you afterwards, but we're also going to share some resources just to kind of help you with this project. If you even learned how to create one track today with the sampler, you can always go back and add more. So we're going to kind of like, move quickly through the next part. But again, a lot of really familiar steps. So hopefully you're feeling comfortable with the interface. So I want you to tap that sound browser button again in the top left-hand corner. It's going to open up our instruments one more time, and you'll notice it goes straight to keyboards. We're going to tap on sampler. And here's where we're going to create our third sample. So as you can tell by my counter, I went with the book. I was trying to create something that would add a deeper percussion sound. You've seen like Law and Order, whenever it starts, it's got that dun dun. So I wanted to kind of go for something like that with the book. So again, you're just going to tap that record button. Now you'll notice with this particular sample, there's a lot of dead space on the front and the back. So I'm going to give you a minute now to quick create that sample, and then we'll talk about how you can trim that up. All right, so now that this is your third sample and you're pros at sampling, I'm going to just quick move on to the next part. So as I had mentioned, this one, like you can really see, it has a lot of that dead space in the beginning as well as the end. So I just want you to grab those handles and kind of trim that in to really isolate the largest part of the sound. Now, I had also mentioned here that I wanted to create a deep sound. So I'm going to tap on those octave buttons. And again, as Eoin had mentioned, depending on how your sample recorded, you might be at -1 at this point or +1. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this down 2 octaves. And I jumped ahead in our keynote. So the other thing we want to do with this sample one more time is we want to use that scale feature. So if you tap on your scale button, you're going to turn on minor one more time. And I'll just give you about 30 seconds to get caught up there. Now it's time to actually record what we're going to do for our rhythm track here. So you'll notice in the ruler, I used that instrument track header. I'm going to tap right around the 8 so I can kind of have an introduction. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep 2 notes here. And I'm going to tap both of those notes right before I get to the number to create a, so if you're counting along of a 1, 2, 3, then I hit my notes 4 and you'll notice each of those 2 happen right before a number on the ruler line. So if Eoin plays this, you'll just kind of see the video demo. Tap, tap. Now for this, I went with this really simple pattern because musically we have so much going on right now with the arpeggiator and with our melodic line. I don't want to really interfere with that. So you definitely want to keep your rhythm simple. And again, something maybe right at the beginning, something towards the end of a measure is just going to kind of add a little bit of depth to your project, especially with those lower sounds. So this is one where I would really encourage you to practice maybe before you record. But again, we have those undo features, so you can always undo and redo. But we're going to set a little bit of a timer here so you can kind of just test that out. Once you've gone through and practiced that, we want you to record. So again, you're just going to bring that track header back to the beginning, tap the red record button in the top control bar, watch that count in, and bring in your percussion track. I know that was a super fast 2 minutes. So if you didn't nail that percussion track and get the rhythm exactly as you want, I want to show you this amazing feature in GarageBand that will save your life. It saves my life every time. So what you're going to do is in your project view, you'll notice in the top left-hand corner, the track controls. You're going to tap on that, tap on track settings. And from here, I want you to choose a quantization. And it obviously depends on what you did for your track. I went with straight eighth notes. So I'm going to tap on straight. I'm going to choose the eighth note. And then I'm just going to tap out. That's going to fix any of the rhythm issues that I had in this project and just kind of clean it all up.
So we're just going to walk you through then some of the basics of editing and mixing, and these would be more so for your own time if you're going a little bit further with the project. So before we do that, we'd like you to just maybe like take 1 minute and just, well, maybe only about 30 seconds it should be all it takes, just to have a little bit of a listen to your project, particularly volume levels, and I'll kind of talk you through those a little bit. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of time to kind of just have a little bit of a listen back to what we've done. And you might notice that some of the volume levels, they're a little bit off. So I'm going to show you how you can go a little bit further yourself and really adjust these. So what we're going to do now is up in the top left of your screen, we're going to tap on the tracks button. You know, it has a lot, it almost looks like a brick wall. So that's what's called the tracks button. And that brings us into what we call tracks view. And then if we just tap and hold on any of our instrument icons and swipe to the right, it opens up this view. And then you see these volume sliders here. And very simply, just be guided by your ear, and then you can make adjustments to these, to the volume, so that some tracks can be louder, some tracks can be quieter. Top tip, if you want to hear a track more, turn the other ones down. Don't necessarily turn that one up. We're going to skip actually giving you time for that. We're going to move straight to the effects section. If you really want to, we're only going to demo this on one track, but you could do it with every single track and really get very spacey and really sci-fi with these. But I'm just going to do it just with one track. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap on my first sample track, our second one that we did, which was our melodic track. Remember our A, and then another note. I'm just going to tap on that. And then I'm going to tap on track controls. It's the fourth one from the left, up in the top left. And it's like 3 lines with dots on them. I'm going to tap at that. And then down the bottom, you'll see that there's a section called Master Effects. Now you can go much deeper with this too, but we're going to keep it really simple. And we're just going to add a little bit more reverb, which creates that kind of spacey ambient sound in the background. And then I'm also going to bring the echo about halfway up. And I'm just going to tap that track controls button again to take us back out of that. And let's just hear what the difference that makes. So you should hear that there's a big difference there in the overall volume. So I know someone had asked earlier in the questions about a track being louder. That will be very common whenever you're using samples. So mixing those volumes will be really, really helpful. So I'll pass you back to Erika so she can start showing you how you might share your project out.
All right, so if you've made it through with us this whole time, this is the best part, right? Because you've created this amazing project and you want to share it with people. So how do you do that? So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and tap in the top left-hand corner, the My Songs button. It looks like a folded piece of, it's like a paper that's been dog-eared. So you're going to go ahead and tap on that. And this kind of saves your projects into your recents. So there you can see our song. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press and hold onto that. And a menu is going to pop up. From here, I'm going to choose share. Song, right? Because I want to maybe use this in some other things. It's going to default to high quality, but just make sure you have that. You also notice at the bottom, you could always add your name as the artist or an album or anything that you want to do there. Once you've tapped on that, you're going to hit share. And from there, you're going to be able to choose your location where you want to put it. You might want to save it to files so that you can access this later for a Keynote project. You could bring this music right into a Clips project or iMovie. But it's up to you. From there, you could also just text it to a friend. So we have some ideas and suggestions of how we think that you could take this project further. And so I'm actually going to have Eoin talk about that a little bit, and I'm going to put some links in the chat for you. So, you know, at the end, if you want to take a minute and also grab the chat so you can have these available. All right, go ahead, Eoin.
think about the theme of our project that we're doing today, and the sci-fi theme that we're doing, we generally hear these in TV and media. So TV and movies. So I think that the biggest use of this might be not just for the music, but that you might go a bit further with this and add it into an iMovie project or into a Clips project, or it might be just some background noise, some background stuff in a keynote that you're creating, to kind of themed keynote. But you can also go further with what you're learning about GarageBand and duplicate your sections and build that song out. It doesn't have to be just 30 seconds. It could be 30 minutes long. You can add additional instruments, have it build up one at a time. There's so many ways that you can go further. And we're only showing you a short snippet of this, just 4 tracks today. We can go so much further with what we do with this. So just a couple of resources that will help you to get there and to go a little bit deeper beyond this introductory session today with this. So the GarageBand support site and the user guide is absolutely fantastic. We'd highly recommend that. And also the Everyone Can Create Music Guide, which is available on Apple Books. Erika's putting chat links in for those now into the chat, and you can just search for them and you'll find them too. We'd also highly recommend you check out the Apple Teacher Learning Center. And when you go in to all of the skills tutorials, you'll see there's the sampler is done in there in the GarageBand section in Apple Teacher. And a little bit of shameless self-promotion. If you want to go further with making music, I have a book on Apple Books called Cover Songs with GarageBand for iPad, where it teaches you how to look up the chords of a song that you love and then create your own unique cover version, but kind of uncover it and do your own thing with it, so it becomes your own original music. And you could sci-fi that up if you wanted. And then one of my favorite books that's out there, and certainly one of my favorite designs, and I love all of the activities, Erika's book, Live Loops Poetry. So using not tracks, but live loops, and how this is such a great one for introductory ideas. But again, the kind of loops and things that you could put into these projects could be in the theme of what we're doing, or something completely different too. But I'd highly recommend that you check out that book.
All right, so hopefully you've mastered the sampler in less than an hour. We would love to see anything that you created today. If you want to make a screen recording and post that to Twitter. These are some of the hashtags that we were suggesting, not just for this session, but a way to stay connected to the community and see what other people are doing creatively with these projects. I've also just dropped in our Twitter handles. So if you made something and you're sharing, please tag us in it, because we would love to see what you did. And we managed to do this and still make it under an hour. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. We're really looking forward to hearing what you all create. Experiment with it, have fun. Remember, it's sci-fi. If something sounds a bit funny, go with it. It really suits the theme anyway. But have some fun with it, sample some sounds, see what you can turn everyday sounds in your house, see what you can turn them into.